Wait. I have a question, though, because you said that the Kings didn't really want to fire him. So why did they fire him?
I
know?
didn't read the full article, but they did not want to fire him. Something they kind of came to, I guess, a consensus that
They felt forced to. Like, there was no results, so we have to do it. But they didn't really want to do it.
I mean, I find the article.
Maybe they were torn. There was like half of them wanted to, half of them didn't.
There's really no behavioral patterns for the Kings.
Yeah.
Because they're a dumb franchise that makes dumb decisions. And this just adds on to the list. Like, I don't understand. Like, what other coach out there is better than Mike Brown?
Yeah.
Bro has won 4 championships and got this team out of the playoff drought. It was the longest playoff drought in NBA history. Led them to 2 winning seasons. 2 winning seasons. The Kings haven't had a winning season before that since like we were growing up as like babies.
Right.
So
I'm sorry to cut you off. I want to add to his point. So Ramona Shelburne said that that they asked him if there were moves to make with the roster to staff that might help. Nobody wanted to fire Mike, one's Kings source said. People here really cared about him until the very last moment they were trying to make it work. And then they inquired about Levine, Ingram, Cam Thomas, and Kyle Kuzma.
Oh, wow.
And now people are already speculating that De'Aaron Fox will request a trade before the trade deadline.
This confused me because whether you wanted to fire him or not, you still did it. And I'm just a little perplexed by it, especially the way they did it. And this is what caused a lot of backlash because they lost the game to the Pistons, right? We all know Fox fouled Jaden Ivey and all that stuff. They had a full practice the next day or the day after. Then he spent almost half an hour talking with the media.
Yes.
Gathered all of his things, getting ready to go to LA for the road trip. And as he was in the car on the way to the airport, got the call from Monty McNair, broke the news, told him he was fired and everything like that. Michael Malone said no class, no balls. JB Bickerstaff also called them classless as well. Mike Malone was also fired by Monty McNair a decade ago in Sacramento. So obviously he's a guy that keeps receipts, holds grudges.
As a head coach?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was before he got the chance in Denver, and they've been patient with him. I don't like to mince words on this show because I think just being blunt kind of gets the point across the best. Now, I'm sure that he's a nice guy, but Monty McNair is so bitch made for this. Like, this was the lamest, most obvious scapegoat. This is worse than anything the Lakers have done in their entire history. Like, this dude was the only unanimous coach in NBA history just a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And now he's out the door.
I understand where you're coming from, where it's like, give the coach a chance, you know, like, have them grow with the players or have them, you know, grow as a coach. And maybe they'll get better as the years go on. But I don't know, like, things weren't working. The team, there was talent on that team. Every year that he coached there, it seemed to get a little bit worse.
Right.
Right. And then, but you at the same time, the GM is doing his job by getting in these players. Right.
But did the GM do his job?
I would say yes, because here's the thing. As a GM, you think of players who to get, and then your coach has to sign off on that. Like, yeah, I can work at that player. You can pick him up. And then GM's like, all right, I'm going to get him. That's how things work. That's the GM-coach relationship. The GM's doing his job. He's looking for people to get. The coach is like, all right, yeah, get him, don't get him. You know what I'm saying? I can work with this guy. I can't work with this guy.
Yeah.
So the GM did his job. Mike Brown didn't, in my opinion.
Right.
I think Mike Brown, I think he is a good coach. I genuinely do think that. But I think that his time in Sacramento is done. I don't like the way they got rid of him. That was unprofessional, like everyone else was saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't a cordial goodbye to Mike Brown, but I think I just don't think that in that time Mike Brown was the guy for the job. So
that's fair. I mean, the only thing I kind of disagree with is because the Kings were hesitant on even extending Mike Brown, which I'm really glad he got his money.
Yeah,
because now he's going to get paid for the next 3 to 4 years.
He's getting his money, and that's fine. Yeah.
The problem is I think there was a disconnect between Mike Brown and the Kings because Mike Brown is a very ambitious guy. He wants to move fast, get things good very quick, and that's what he did his first season there. Kind of elevated Fox's game a lot more than it was before.
Sure.
Sabonis has become a much better player since his days in Indiana. Harrison Barnes looked really good in Sacramento, and the first couple seasons of Keegan Murray were really good. You got good minutes just all across the board from Malik Monk, and Trey Lyles looked good.
Yep.
So I think you lose guys after each year, and you lose a big piece in Harrison Barnes, who's been a constant in that team for years.
Right.
And you replace him with a better player, but is it a better fit for that team? And that's where I think Monty McNair kind of screwed up.
Okay.
Because DeMar seemed like an impulse purchase, essentially, where I don't think he was necessary. He was the only guy available. The Kings fell asleep during free agency. They really did nothing. And you were left with DeMar DeRozan to kind of fill a void where Harrison Barnes was fine for the team. You didn't really need to get rid of him. I think the Kings were doing okay. And I think, you make the playoffs, he wins Coach of the Year, you have one little fallback year because the West got significantly better. Because keep in mind, that season, the East was the better conference.
Right.
So, the West gets stacked, teams move up.
Well, what if it was this? Look at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
The Kings see that the West has gotten outstanding, right?
Yeah.
And as they're declining a little bit, the West is getting better. So they're like, okay, Mike Brown would be better off coaching somewhere else. Bring his talents to another team because he's not going to be able to win with us. You know what I'm saying? So let us do a little rebuild. Let's get rid of Fox. Let's get rid of the other guy. Let us rebuild a little bit and start over again because this West right now, we can't win with the West. Maybe that was their mindset. What do you think?
It's hard to tell because they were outplaying the Warriors so early on in that series.
Yeah.
If Steph doesn't go nuclear in game 7, I think the Kings sail past the Lakers and probably bow out to Denver in the conference finals. So you're looking at a team that could have contended for a championship, and they went 48-34 that year. They only lost two. They lost 2 more games the year afterwards. So that's how much of a shift there was in the West. But that's because a lot of guys in the East moved over. So when Kevin Durant moves from the East to the West, he only was in the West for 15 games because he got hurt. So it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, obviously the Thunder rose up, the Wolves rose up, and the Kings kind of just they did what they needed to do. They just didn't win enough games. They beat the Warriors in the play-in. Obviously the loss against New Orleans was bad, but I can't pin any of this on Mike Brown. I just can't because I think the front office let him down just because of the history of the Kings front office, their track record of just not doing enough and not putting their guys in right situations. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to sign anyone in free agency, then what are we actually doing here?
One more point, though.
Yeah.
For Mike Brown. The defense sucks in Sacramento for the past 3 years. As long as he's been there, the defense has been garbage.
Yeah.
Bottom tier defense. And what is defense? Defense is all coaching, right?
Yeah.
Offense, you got these talented players. They can go out and get buckets.
They were the number 1 offense in the league.
Number 1 offense. Great players, great scheme. But the defense is all coaching. The defense has been abysmal the past 3 years. That's another reason why maybe they decided to move on.
Well, here's my counterpoint. So last season, Indiana had by far the worst defense in the NBA. I mean, they were putrid in all ways around. Rick Carlisle got those boys locked in the playoffs, and they were clamping up everyone. The Kings never really got that chance because I thought they played really well against Golden State. It was a good first opportunity. You lose Malik Monk at the end of the season last year, and he didn't get to play. They lost 2 or 3 guys to injury, which is why they lost to New Orleans, evidently. And then look, this year you lose more guys. You bring in a player that's not DeMar's not really the best defender that ever lived, and he's new. You're trying to adjust to the system and everything like that. So I understand why it's tough. Sacramento's just going to be a what if at this point.
Yeah.
Because I see both sides because I could easily see this team competing. But at the end of the day, you said this last week, Fox really hasn't proved winning much. Sabonis has proven to be overrated at times. And, if Malik Monk is still going to be your bench player, you need other guys to step up. And at the end of the day, they didn't. So we'll never know.